before I deployed. He was like, "Oh yeah, that guy's terrible. He's an absolute piece of shit." That I was trying to make with that is that home station units will deploy people that they know are not good people so that they don't have to deal with them.
Truth. 100% truth in the military, and I think in the corporate world, they do the shuffle.
And as an officer, as long as you don't do anything illegal, you're going to get lieutenant colonel. You might never become a squadron commander or get
Mhm.
command because I've seen. We had this one guy. Did I ever tell you? Did I ever tell you about this guy
I don't
on
know.
my last deployment? So he was at Global Strike. You might have known him. He was at Global Strike. I almost don't want to say his name.
Okay,
He was at Global Strike on staff,
okay.
and apparently had a habit of screaming at people. Like we're talking like civilians
Mhm,
who do have a choice as to whether or not they're going to stay
mhm,
and chose not to, and just was just toxic leader, right? I
mhm.
feel like that's a term that's very overused, but it seemed to fit him. I came in I think it was August of 2019, and he had like PCSed out somewhere else in July or something like that. So the DOC survey that I got to sit in on like day
Mhm.
three of being there. Yeah, so everyone was complaining about him. He showed up. Did I tell you this before?
Mm.
No. He showed up at CENTCOM Forward headquarters when I was the senior enlisted leader of the J2
Nice.
when we were pulling out of Afghanistan.
Oh.
Right. And so he is sitting on the CGIOC floor as
Mhm.
like a small team lead,
Uh-huh.
as lieutenant colonel,
Mm.
making lieutenant colonel pay, and did a horrible job. Like, as soon as he got there, his team had problems.
Mhm.
Whenever I saw him, he was doing a crossword puzzle. And this was during the probably the busiest, most dynamic time
Mhm.
of that point
Yeah.
in the war effort where we were like,
Or
we
also
weren't
known as
going to
human
pull out.
history.
We weren't sure when we were going to pull out. Like we
Yeah.
didn't need to know like not only what the Taliban were doing, but what the Afghan National Security Defense Forces were doing, and like how they were being postured and how their operations were affecting the Taliban, and like the Taliban was encroaching. And
Mhm.
he took breaks to go swim. He like he was clearly not worried about getting the job done, adding
Mhm.
value. What he did spend his time doing, though, uh, at one point I saw him walking around because our deputy J2 had come from Kabul and was in the office with us for like a week or so, a few days. And it was supposed to sort of be like a bit of a break for him because these were year-long deployments and these
Mhm.
were 16-hour days
Yeah,
every day.
yeah.
There were no days off. And so this lieutenant colonel is like looking for the deputy J2. So we're in the, we're in the big CGIOC where targets sits and
Mhm,
everybody
mhm.
sits. And so he's like walking around and he finds our office and he's like, I'm the first one he sees. He's like, "Are you Colonel Elson?" I was like, "No." Yeah, no, you couldn't see my rank. So he's,
Mm.
"Are you Colonel?" No. So he just keeps walking. Like, so he finally found Colonel Elson to chat with him for like an hour or two.
Mhm.
I never saw him spend that sort of time talking to the people who he was in charge of
Right.
leading.
Of course not, right? Of course not. So,
It was all about making himself look as good as possible to anybody else and actively ignoring or disregarding or taking a very hands-off approach to the people that he was responsible for. When I was still at Global Strike before I deployed, our like the Global Strike, the MAGCOM functional manager for like personnel placement in the command, she sat right next to me and she's like, so he applied for a major's position back here on staff 2 years after he had left. Actually, no, it was like a year and a half after he had left. He applied for a major's position
Hmm.
because he was like, I just love Louisiana so much and just want to stay there.
Hang on a second.
Here, I'll be right back. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Everything okay? Oh, you're still paused.
All right.
Everything good?
Yeah. Early morning start.
I commend you for doing it. Yeah, this guy was terrible. Like, and as soon as he got there, like I recognized his name, so I reached back out to Tanis.
Oh yeah.
So he was still in at the time, and he was my supervisor back home, and I was like, hey, I've got the sneaking suspicion that one of my inbounds is this guy that I heard very bad things about before I deployed. He was like, oh yeah, that guy's terrible. He's an absolute piece of shit. I was like, oh, good.
Excellent.
So I'm in this position now where I've got to figure out the right way to go about, like, because I haven't experienced this guy. I don't know what he's going to bring to the table or if he's just going to make things terrible. So I don't want to like burn him before he gets there. But at the same time, like, definitely need to tell somebody my concerns because his work is going to directly affect the quality of life for my people who are going to be locked in a room with him for 16 hours a day and either succeed or have a terrible time because of him.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't afford to have people that made things terrible for us at that point in time. And yeah, so I was told Colonel McDonald, my the DO, I was like, hey, this is the thing about this guy. Like, this is what I know about him, and this is what people who used to work with him have told me. And he's like, that's not good. It's like, no, it's not good. It's bad. It's bad that he's coming here. And this unfortunately seems like a theme within the military, where low performers, people who don't do enough to get kicked out, but do enough so that nobody really wants to work with them.
Yeah.
They just get
Shuffled.
kicked. They just get shuffled along.
Mm-hmm.
You see it on the enlisted side, and you see it on the officer side.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't do enough to get to like misdemeanor felony type stuff, and even if you do misdemeanor type stuff but it stays quiet, like, you can just ride out a 20-year career and suckle on the government teeth for that entire time while offering no value. And unless people are very honest about your performance and the value that you do or do not bring to an organization, like, you don't get to push those people out. Those people just end up staying around. We've got out here. And so I'm sorry, the point that I was trying to make with that is that home station units will deploy people that they know are not good people so that they don't have to deal with them.
Truth. 100% truth in the military. And I think in the corporate world, they do the shuffle, right? They just keep shuffling them from one job to another job every couple months or every 6 months or every whatever, or eventually they just fire them, right? It gets to a point to, depending on the organizational tolerance for that.
So, and I think I think organizations that have a little bit more leeway, like we're not talking like tier one military units, right?
Right.
We're not talking the 724 in the Air Force. We're not talking the
Hmm.
Deltas for the Army or the SEALs for the Navy. Like these are the guys that have a high school diploma and maybe a shitty home life or maybe enlisted because they didn't really have any prospects otherwise. Like if you have an organization with a culture that can build people up, like you can take people from very terrible circumstances and they can serve their country in a way that is honorable, in a way
Hmm.
that is edifying and that adds value to the people that they work shoulder to shoulder with. But all too often, the conversations that need to be had in order to cultivate the mindset to encourage people to offer value to the organization that they're a part of, like that's those are not had. Those are that's not the culture for whatever reason. The culture is do as little work as you possibly can, and that's the goal. That's a good day.